I know I've spoken about this subject of being seen in other videos that I've made, but my Wonder Twin and I were recently discussing relationships and this topic. And while the thoughts were still fresh in my mind, I decided to record them and bring more clarity to the topic, because I think it's very necessary, and I think it's a very important thing that we struggle with in our relationships. We can all agree that we have difficulty being seen. Some of this is due to immaturity. In our youth, I believe we have this fairy tale, idealistic notion in our minds that we want to find people who see us, in other words, without us having to give them many hints or many clues. You know, someone just comes along and just sees us for who we are, and they understand us, and they appreciate us and respect us, and they want to know more. They want to dig deeper. I can understand this because I was the same way myself. And it took me some time before I realized that this wasn't realistic. And I think to be mature, you have to reach a point in your life where you achieve more balance. So we start out in our younger years having this unrealistic, idealistic wish or desire that people would just see us for who we are. And then we quickly realize that is really not going to happen. I don't know if we realize so much that it's not going to happen, but I just think we get a bit more realistic. You know, we start to grow up and realize that it's going to take a bit more to be seen by someone. And again, I'm not just speaking here of romantic relationships. I'm speaking of relationships in general. And I'll speak more to that as I go along. But one of our greatest desires is to be seen. And I think once we understand that, once we know that we aren't being seen, you know, the confusion sets in, you know, the struggle begins, the search for understanding. You know, why is this? Why is it this way in my life? And when we start to ask these questions, then we can start to make progress in this area and start to understand ourselves in this way more and what we really need when it comes to relationships. So I think we have to achieve more balance in this area of being seen. So again, I think an unrealistic or an idealistic way of looking at it is just to expect that someone is going to come along out of nowhere and just see us. And we don't have to do any work. We don't have to make any moves or give that person any hints, any clues. They just see us. And I think as we grow older, we realize that that's a pretty tall task. And, you know, I don't know that it's necessarily fair to expect someone to be able to do that. So then I think we realize that we need some balance. And that's when we start to look at things a bit more realistically. So you reach that point where you can start to play with this a little bit more, where you can start testing people a bit and give them clues to yourself. To me, I see it a little bit as a baiting of the hook. You kind of meet somebody. Again, it doesn't have to be romantic. It can just be a friend situation, you know, and it starts out kind of, a lot of the times, the ways that all kind of connections start out, a sort of superficial level, and then you need to see if this is going to have the potential to go any deeper. So there's this testing that happens, and you need to give the other person, or you start to give the other person a few clues here and there. And you're hoping that they take what you give them and are intrigued by it and are interested in it and want to dig deeper into who you are and want to find out who you are from what you give them. You want them to be intrigued in the same way that we are intrigued by others, because we are. We listen to what other people say and look for I don't want to say the hidden meanings, but we look for what's not necessarily being said, you know, like we want to read between the lines. We want to find the deeper understanding of that person, and we want the same in return. So I think we start to put out little clues here and there, and the expectation is if this relationship is going to progress in any way, that person has to take those clues, that bait, and they have to do something with it. So to provide some context before I keep talking about this in a way that's sort of more nebulous, I'll just give a real example. Recently, someone has come back into my life, someone that I knew from many years ago, and she contacted me, and she's expressed a desire to be friends again. And honestly, I wasn't sure what I thought about that. We didn't know each other for very long, as it was, and it was kind of built, the friendship was sort of built around similar interests that we had shared. And again, I say friendship because this was a long time ago when I didn't know myself very well. And it definitely wasn't it wasn't really like it wasn't a friendship. Let's just say that, how I would define friendship now. It was definitely more just knowing someone built around interests. But anyway, she has contacted me and she wants to have a friendship with me. And so I wasn't opposed to seeing what could happen. So we had an initial phone conversation, and it was a lot to catch up on because, like I said, it had been many years since we talked, and a lot has happened in both of our lives. She's since got married and started a family. I've had a lot of things happen in my life, so we had to get caught up. And so we did. And that's kind of like the beginning for me, like the icebreaker. Okay, so we've kind of gotten caught up on the details, if you will, of what's happening in our lives. So now what's going to happen? So she's obviously very busy as a mother. She works, all those things. She decided that Thursdays would be a good day for us to keep in touch. And so what she's been doing is she sends me long text messages on Thursdays and just tells me what's going on in her life. And that's all well and good. But again, in my mind, this has to go somewhere for it to become something. So at first, the texts are about everything that's happening in her week. Basically, kind of like a report of what has gone on with her and her family, things that have happened at work and so on. Now, what I've been doing, and again, this is because I am aware, I know what I want out of a friendship. If I'm going to pursue a friendship with somebody, I know what I want. So I kind of am approaching this now more from an awareness state of mind. Whereas in the past, I think that we do the same thing. We're just not aware of it. I think that we do the whole drop the clues thing, give them the bait, and we're just not understanding what we are wanting out of it. I mean, we know what we want out of it, but again, we do so many things like from this like subconscious desire that we're not necessarily aware. But now I am aware. And so I am purposely giving her baiting the hook, giving her things. So I kind of played the game at first. I gave details, what happened in my week. Although, to be honest, trying to remember like what happened in the past week is really like a good exercise for me because it's amazing how I can't remember what has happened in the past week. But anyway, I digress. So I started then giving her more. I responded by sort of saying things that had happened in my week. But again, I'm not interested in talking about that as much. I want to go deeper. I want to discuss other things, not just the details of what happened in our week. That's not enough for me. A relationship, to me, cannot be sustained on that. So I've started just putting little things in the texts, going beyond what's happened in my week. I've been sharing some of my thoughts that I've been having, just little glimpses here and there into my mind. And I don't have to tell you what they are because you know exactly what I'm talking about. So I've been doing this for a while now, and she hasn't bit. She hasn't responded in kind at all. All I get back the next Thursday is a very surfacey response, only dealing with the things that I relayed that I had done. She only comments on the things that I've accomplished in the week or whatever I've shared with her in that way. She's never responded to any of what I would consider the more meatier bits. So I already know the handwriting is on the wall with this one. This is not going to go anywhere. I was very careful this time not to jump in head first like I did in the past, when I would think that there could be something interesting with another person, and I would just dive right in and not use a whole lot of discretion, right, or wisdom. But this is different now. So I haven't said a whole lot, and I haven't gotten involved to the point where I would have a hard time disentangling at this point. But I just use this example because I want to be seen by her. I am giving her pieces of me, pieces of my mind, my thoughts, in the hopes that she will take what I give her and do some deeper digging so that we can have some real back and forth, so we can have the kind of conversations that I really want to have, that I desire in a relationship, that I must have in order to have a fulfilling relationship of any kind. So that's what it takes for us to have a fulfilling relationship. That's definitely one of the keys. We have to be seen. If I have to work so hard at giving someone pieces all the time and they never really want to explore on their own, and I have to give them everything, that is not going to satisfy me either. I need them to be able to pick the pieces that I give them, to take and sift through and decide what they want to pursue. I need someone to be able to do that in order for a relationship to be deeply satisfying to me. Now, you must realize, as you mature and grow and achieve more balance in your life, when you have that desire to be seen and you're willing to be seen, you have to understand that that comes with its own challenges. For me, I've never wanted anything more than to be seen. But when I was seen, as I've shared before here in different videos, it was terrifying. It's very scary to be seen. And I think a lot of times it's like we have this double-sidedness to ourselves. We intensely desire to be seen, and when we're not, we're unhappy. But then when we're seen, we're also unhappy, and we're scared, and we're frightened. And I think that's largely due, in part, to the fact that we don't know who we are. And so to have someone else come in and start digging around, that can be a very scary thing when you're not sure of things yourself. And, I'm still not sure of myself. And it still is a scary thing sometimes when I feel exposed in certain ways that I'm not sure of. And I suspect that will happen to me for the rest of my life. But again, what I'm saying to you is that there's challenges in being seen, and you have to be aware of that. And you have to have a mature understanding of that. If that's what you really want, if you really want to be seen, well, then you can't be afraid of it. You have to realize that sometimes being seen is being seen for the beautiful things that you are, right? The beautiful person you are. But it's also to be seen for the ugly bits of you, right? The things that you don't want other people to see. Maybe internal hypocrisies within yourself, maybe internal inconsistencies that are going to be brought out into the light. And you have to realize that. And that's a very scary thing. But at the same time, it's the only way forward. It's the only way to grow. So if you want to give someone the power to see you, and you trust that person to do so in a relationship, well, then you have to let them see who you are, and you have to take what they give you back and look in the mirror and be honest about it and use it as a tool for growth. That's been the role of relationships in my life. The good, satisfying, fulfilling relationships is that they kind of help me to uncover parts of myself that perhaps I didn't want to deal with. Because that's how you grow. You can't be a stagnant person. You can't, live in some unrealistic vision of yourself where you only see the good, where you choose only to see the good, and you don't choose to see the areas where you really need to go in and do some excavating and make some changes. So those are 2 points where relationships can fail for us, either never take off the ground or just fail in one way or the other, and that is when someone doesn't want to or doesn't have the capability maybe, to really look inside of you and see who you are, take the clues that you give them. That's one way that relationship is just never going to go anywhere. And then the other way in which it is going to fail is when someone starts to dig too much, like when they start to really want to know who you are. If you don't have the correct mindset going in, if you don't have that desire to want to take what that other person gives you and grow from it, then the relationship is not going to go anywhere either, because you're going to run away and not want to deal with it. The other thing I want to say here about being seen is you have to examine what that means for you. What does it mean, or what does it look like to be seen by someone else in all its ways, in all its forms? In other words, you want to be seen for who you are, accepted and loved for who you are. Once you realize that you are not a perfect person, once you open the door to allowing someone else to see those more unsavory sides of you, then you also realize that you want that person to know that you're not perfect, to know that you're not some kind of ideal up in this ivory tower. And then you want them to see you for who you are, but then still love you, right? Knowing that you're going to take what they give you and work on it, but they'll still love you where you are, even though they can see these parts of you that aren't as pretty or nice. But if you understand that, then you have to realize that you have to do the same for the other person, because you are going to see parts of them. You're going to see the beautiful. That's easy to see first, right? Because you get all wrapped up in the excitement of a new relationship, whatever that is. But then, over time, you start to see the unsavory bits in the other person. And that other person has a desire, just like you do, to be accepted and loved for who they are. So if you expect someone to see you unfiltered and still love you, well, then you have to extend that same love toward the other person. And you must have that in order for your relationship to grow. So you have to be accepting of the other person just as you want them to be accepting of you.